Okay, let's talk about the most complex, most fascinating object in the entire known universe, your brain. But here's the thing, it's not some unknowable black box. The best way to think about it is as a map. And today, we're going to give you the key and show you exactly how to read it. All right, let's dive right in. Our whole journey starts right here, on this incredibly intricate, folded surface. This is the cerebral cortex. This landscape with all its wrinkles and folds is where your thoughts, your personality, pretty much everything you experience comes from. And, it might look like a jumbled mess, but I promise you, it's an incredibly well-organized territory. So just imagine for a second, what if you could actually read that map? What if you could navigate the very terrain that makes you, well, you? That's exactly what we're about to do. We're going on a personal tour of your own mental geography. First things first, we need to get the lay of the land. We'll start by taking a look at the major landmarks. Think of them as the continents of your brain. So this whole surface is split into four big territories, what neuroscientists call lobes. Right up front, you've got the frontal lobe. Kind of on the top and to the back is the parietal lobe. On the sides, near your ears, are the temporal lobes, and then way in the back, you have the occipital lobe. Each one is like its own continent, with a totally unique job to do. So now that we have our map, it's time to start the expedition. We're going to visit each and every one of these lobes and find out what makes them tick and how they all work together to create your reality. First up, let's talk about the big one, right at the front, the frontal lobe. This is your command center. It's the CEO of the entire operation. It sits right behind your forehead, and get this, it takes up almost half of each side of your brain. It's huge. And just like a good CEO, its job is all about high-level thinking, what we call executive functions. Planning your week, solving a tough puzzle at work, making a judgment call, that's all your frontal lobe. It also controls all your voluntary movements and, crucially, it's home to a little spot called Broca's area, which is what allows you to physically form words and speak. So you might be wondering, how on earth did we figure out that this part of the brain is tied to personality? Well, it comes from the absolutely wild and true story of a man named Phineas Gage. Back in the 1800s, he was a railroad worker, and in a total freak accident, a massive iron rod was blasted clear through his skull, taking a huge chunk of his frontal lobe with it. And here's the craziest part. He lived, but he wasn't Phineas Gage anymore. His doctor wrote that he had become like a child in his intellectual capacities, with the general passions of a strong man. He was impulsive, profane. His entire personality had changed overnight. And that's the key takeaway here. This one horrific accident gave us the first real proof that our personality, our very sense of self, is physically located right there in the frontal lobe. A personal tragedy ended up becoming a pillar of modern neuroscience. Okay, moving on from the CEO in the front, our tour takes us to the parietal lobe, just behind it. If the frontal lobe is the command center, think of the parietal lobe as the main sensory hub. It's where all the raw data from the world and your body gets processed. This lobe is your sensory integrator. It's home to the primary sensory cortex, which handles every sensation you can think of. Touch, heat, cold, pain. It also gives you your sense of spatial awareness. That feeling of where your body is, which is how you can walk through a crowded room without bumping into everyone. Now, here is a really cool question. Your parietal lobe has a map of your entire body, but it's not a normal map. It's distorted. Some body parts get way more brain power dedicated to them than others. Any ideas which ones? And here is the answer. It's this bizarre little guy called the sensory homunculus. This is a physical representation of that brain map. And just look at the size of those hands and lips. It's because those areas are jam-packed with nerve endings, so they need a ton of processing power in your parietal lobe compared to, say, your back or your leg. All right, we're almost done with the main continents of our brain map. Let's head over to the sides of the head to the temporal lobes. They handle what you hear, and then we'll finish up at the very back with the occipital lobes, which are all about vision. The easiest way to think about these two is as your brain's audio and video departments. The temporal lobe, right by your ears, contains the primary auditory cortex. It's also where you find Wernicke's area, which is crucial for understanding language. Meanwhile, the occipital lobe, in the back, it's 100% dedicated to vision. It's your primary visual cortex, working nonstop to make sense of all the light, color, and movement your eyes are taking in. So we've visited all the major continents of the brain, but how do they talk to each other? How does information get from one place to another? For that, we have to go a little deeper, under the cortex, and explore the brain's information superhighway. So the brain's internal internet is basically built with two kinds of wiring. You've got association fibers, which are like local calls. They connect different areas inside the same half of the brain. Then you've got commissure fibers, which are like the massive underwater cables connecting continents. They connect an area in one hemisphere to the exact same area in the other. And the undisputed champion of those long-distance cables is this huge, C-shaped bundle of fibers right in the middle called the corpus callosum. This is the main bridge connecting your left and right brain, making sure they work together seamlessly, like a single, unified team. For the last stop on our tour, we are going right to the very center of it all. Deep inside the brain, there's a structure that acts as the grand central station for almost all the information traffic coming in and out. It's called the thalamus.
Yep, meet the brain's ultimate relay station. Here's a mind-blowing fact. With the single exception of smell, every single bit of sensory information, everything you see, hear, taste, and touch, has to pass through the thalamus first. It's like a master switchboard operator, sorting all those incoming signals and directing them to exactly the right spot on the cortex for processing. And it's not just some simple gatekeeper. The thalamus itself is made up of a bunch of smaller, specialized processing centers called nuclei. Each one is fine-tuned to handle different kinds of information, from motor signals to memory. It is a profoundly important hub. And so our tour of the brain's map comes to an end. We've seen the lobes, the highways, the central station. We basically have the blueprint for the hardware. But that leaves us with the biggest question of all. How does all this wet, messy hardware create the software of you, your consciousness, your ideas, your sense of self? And that, right there, is the grand mystery that keeps scientists exploring this incredible map.